Hi, Sandeep Parikh.
Hi, Milana and How are you?
Oh, I'm getting over a stiff neck, which I think is really just your
Hmm.
body being like, cool it.
Yeah.
Seriously. No, no, no. Seriously. Turn
Yeah.
off. Lay down.
I have that theory about sickness too, or
Hmm.
like ankle sprains or whatever. It's just like your body being like, okay, I told you, I tried to warn you,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't. So now I gotta just put you down. I gotta take you down for a count. Just gotta sleeper hold you, choke you out,
And she's out.
and
Uh, I've told my husband, I'm like, I really would love like to just get sick for a few days to just lay on the couch and watch
right?
TV and have a good reason to do that. And he was like, you don't have to get sick
Sick.
to do that. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I do. Actually, like that might be the only way because there's no way that things are happening in my house that I do not get pulled into,
Yeah, and then you
even with
get
this stiff
you
neck.
you get buy-in from everybody if you're sick. If you don't get,
Yes.
otherwise people are just like, wait, you're just gonna watch TV while like I have to spin these plates? Like, are you crazy? Yeah,
Exactly. I've heard Michelle Obama talk about this where like before her and Barack had kids, they would be like, "Oh, you're leaving town? Okay, great. I'm going to catch up on my shows." And then after they had kids, they were like, "Wait, what do you mean you're going to the gym?"
yeah, yeah, exactly. I will slash your tires. Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome to Your Mom is a Check-In. We're already doing it. We're checking in with each other. As we said before, I'm Sandeep Parikh.
I'm Milana Weintraub.
And we do this in between our regular episodes of our show, because we love each other, we love hanging out, and we need to check in with each other. And we're going to talk about a little bit of what inspired us from the Jimmy Pardo episode, which was a very special one. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into that stuff and how it's sort of affecting our parenting journeys. So that's what you're going to get out of this.
What did you think was special about it? What stuck
Well,
from it with you? Sorry, English, second language.
with it from me to stick with, it did, was, I mean, it was our first episode where we like reversed the whole setup. And we
The life cycle.
Yeah, the life cycle, exactly. We went the opposite way in samsara, which is the cycle of life, death, and rebirth.
Beautiful.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a guru.
I'm enlightened now.
And yeah, had the kiddo on talking about the parent, and I thought, we didn't know how that was going to shake out. Who knows? We bring in this 16-year-old kid on, like how podcast ready is a 16-year-old? But it turns out we got ourselves a pretty
He's been
enlightened
training his whole life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's spawned from comedians and
podcast legends. Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. He was, really well articulate and this old soul and it was really cool to get that point of view of like, it was almost like a report card for the dad. Being
yes.
Like, how are you doing, man? Are you doing this right? And, by all accounts, seems like Jimmy's a pretty
He's
decent
crushing
dad.
it.
Yeah.
Well, we said in the episode, like we should check back in 10 years and really see how it's all working out, which I think is actually like we were kidding, but like let's set that date in our calendars because I really am so curious about the chain of events and what leads to us becoming ourselves. This is the seed of our podcast is what leads us to becoming ourselves. And we're getting to meet this kid before he goes off to college, after he's had a life of like a few things that you and I specifically are really curious about: being an only child, being raised in a big city, being raised by entertainers, and he's doing great, which means there's hope for us.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what that did. You're right. It felt like, okay, because right now we got this little 5-year-old who is just coming into his power in all these ways, and he's going to a new school, and he is like, I mean, these tantrums are absolutely wildly epic.
Let's not call them tantrums. Let's call them an overflow of feelings, as my therapist likes to say.
These oofs. Oh, I like that. I like that as an acronym. These oofs he's having. That's so good. Yeah, that's a great reframe. Great reframe. These oofs that he's having they're just bigger, badder. They're just like he's getting older, you know, his oofs are getting older and stronger. And so, you know, we have these moments of just like, are we doing this right? Is this the responsive parenting technique, right? Like, should we punish him? Like, you know,
what's the line between the gentle or responsive parenting and authoritative parenting? And lots of styles, lots of books. I think there will be so many things that make you not listen to yourself.
Right.
So if say you never read a book, say you never talked to anybody, and say your parents didn't punish you, like what? I mean, this is like the hardest thing. I'm like, hey, forget everything you know. But like, what do you think is inside? What do you think is the correct response? Yeah.
My guess is it is because like what comes up from you first, but I don't know if it's the correct response at all, but it is some version of like, go to your room, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't think that that's great. I don't think that is a good way of handling it though. So, you know, or like, you know, sometimes he's like swinging, you know, he's like hitting and stuff. Yeah. He goes for some slaps and hits and bites and stuff like that. And so it'll be like, yeah, you just get this impulse to be like, yo, if you're going to hit your mom, especially when he hits my wife, like that is like really hard to witness.
Yeah, your job is to not let anybody hit your wife.
Yeah, exactly. So like
that was actually in your vows. I was at your wedding and I remember you mentioning that in your vows.
I was like, I will protect you from anyone that tries to punch or kick or bite you, no matter who it is. And little did I know I was talking about my own son.
The only threat is the one you've brought into the world.
Sorry, I was just thinking of someone's vows being like, I will never hit you. And just like, we never thought you until you said it.
That was taken as a given, dude.
I will never,
I will never spit in your face or poison your food. What?
Right. I get very specific. I will never cheat on you. I will never, listen, I won't even scroll on Facebook for way too long looking at old photos of my exes and maybe messaging them when I'm a little bit tipsy.
Okay, now you're getting really specific
again,
with the things you promised not to do. Oh, this is a weird time to bring it up. My grandma's right here.
Yeah, we got to lay it all on the line. This is the moment. So, okay, I'm going to bring it back to Oliver, which is just to say, like, I do think, I don't know
Oliver is Jimmy's son.
Jimmy's son. Like, I don't know how much of a responsive parent he was or whatever, but what I see in Jimmy in terms of kindred spirits is, he's this comedian, he's a storyteller. I can tell he has fun in lots of ways with his kid that, like, you know, it seemed to me like accessing those places of connection more and more versus places of disconnection will lead me to an Oliver. That is my hope.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he was here so that he could actually answer that, because one of the things he said is that he treated him with love up until he was old enough to be treated with respect. And I think, and again, I don't have a 5-year-old, so I'm dumb as bricks when it comes to this conversation, but I am just imagining myself in the future and how we would handle it. And I think part of having respect, and this is actually something you told me, like, don't talk to a kid like they're dumb. Don't talk down to them, kind of talk to them like they're an adult-ish, which I don't fully do because my kid's 3, but there are times where I explain things
and
like,
so cute and they're so yummy and you want to talk to them like
and you just want to like
kiddos.
We've been talking exclusively in Ninja Turtles and Minion voices for like the past 2 days, which has been great. But I do think when you respect somebody, you don't let them hit you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you hit me or one of my friends, I would have to like lay down a line. right? I'd have to be like, that was not okay. And now I need to distance myself from you. And maybe you're not allowed in my space now because I don't feel good around. Like, how do you respond with both love and respect when somebody totally crosses that line?
That's I think the inherent challenge, and in doing it and trying to keep, because if you go to a place of anger or frustration, not that you like have to be this Zen Buddhist all the time, but it can lead to, it can spiral, you know, in the opposite direction. So it's like, how do you remove someone, besides just over and over saying like, hey, I'm right here, but it's not okay to do this. You know, I think the one thing that we've been doing a lot of, which is somewhat working, is hey, your emotions are totally valid and okay, but your behaviors are not. And like getting him to complete the sentence has been kind of helpful, because he's stuck in a loop, you know, he's stuck in a reactive kind of lizard brain loop there. It's not like he's this horrible child. He just like, he feels out of control for some reason, and he feels like he needs to gain control. And the only thing he knows how to do in this moment, when he's under-resourced, hungry, overwhelmed by his day at school, but hasn't processed it, whatever, all those things, is like to just, for him, it's to physically lash out. He is of the fire element for sure. There are other kids that are not. I mean, I've seen other kids that deal with their discomfort in totally different ways, but my son is a little ball of fire. And when it's funny, both of his grandparents will say about him that they remind them of their first kid, both of them, right? And I'm like, and I was talking to my therapist about this, and my therapist was like, what's the common denominator of that? And I was like, oh yeah, like first child. I think there is a first child kind of attitude about it. Cause like then when we're under resourced and feeling terrible, it's harder to react with like loving kindness. But 100%. I do know the faster that we get to it, the easier it does to contain the actual situation and get him to a place of being able to sort of regulate his emotions. It's just so hard though when you're like in the moment. And then like, by the way, he's like also very, very smart. So he is like clever now. He's getting more clever. It's like the velociraptor is learning how to turn the doorknob, like where he'll like kind of calm down a little bit, and then out of nowhere like throw a napkin in my face. Like it's like almost like he's like deliberating on stuff, and I'm just like, whoa, what is happening here? Like he is pushing boundaries and trying to figure out like, yeah, how much control can I exert? I don't know. I don't even know if it's that manipulative or deliberate, but it's some version, I think, of coming back from a hard school day at a new place that is defining how he acts and behaves the entire time. And he does it because he's not in an entirely safe environment. He's in with, you know, kind of strangers, not with his parents. But here he comes to this safe environment with his parents and can just like let all the feelings out. And it's about trying to get him to figure out how he can let those feelings out in ways that aren't harmful to his family.
It's also like, this is the kind of thing where you just don't know what to do until you're in the moment. And even then, I mean, look at you, look at everyone obviously questioning it. I once did this movie with one actor who was about my age, who didn't have any kids, and another woman who had a 3-year-old who she brought with us. And like 2 sets. So we were all kind of seeing each other, living with each other every day. And this 3-year-old was doing normal 3-year-old stuff, bouncing off the walls, you know, not listening to her mom, having oofs. And me and the other guy who didn't have kids were both like, ooh, when I was younger, if I acted this way, my mom would have smacked me so hard. He's also a child of immigrants. And that was a very normal part of our upbringing, was just a spanking. And so when that kid would act out, we would kind of like pull our hand back and be like, ooh, my mama would. Ooh, my mama would.
And it feels like you would, you know?
And then and then I had a child. And I am remembering that. And I'm like, oh, I could never. There is no world where I could ever be okay with hurting this little body. And I've recently heard that like it's still a thing people do. Like that it's still a part of our culture somehow to that
Totally.
people think it's okay to spank kids, or there's like this thought of like, well, if you spank them when they're young, then there's like a built-in fear, and then you don't need to spank them again when they're older, or like, and I actually do believe, I think, in a slightly more authoritative parenting style than you do, because it's what I was raised with a little bit, but I think mostly because I think being an authority figure is helpful in a world where he's constantly looking for right and wrong. And so we do say, like, there have been times where my son hits me and I will hold his hand and I'll say, that's not okay. Or I'll go, oh, did you just hit me? And he'll go, sorry, mama. Like there is that call and response.
You have a different tempered child.
I do.
Very differently tempered child, because
yeah,
I have definitely, I've had to hold his body and say, hey, I've got to hold your body right now. I've got to hold your body. I've got to protect mama, or I got to protect myself. I cannot let you do this. And it does not result in an immediate, sorry, daddy.
Yeah.
That is not where he goes.
It is a different tempered child. I don't mean to compare our kids.
Yeah. I hear you. I just think that like different kids will test boundaries in different ways.
Totally. And my kid will test boundaries by the time he's 5 in many different ways, I'm sure.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know, but I think that, just knowing your son too, like he is just differently tempered, and like he regulates his emotions in totally different ways than mine does, for sure. And what I'm trying to say is I want to trade. No, I'm just kidding.
You can't have mine. I like him.
No,
I like the way his hair smells, and I like the way his feet smells. And we're doing a bit where I pretend to smell his feet, and where I actually smell his feet and I go, yuck. But in actuality, I love them. I love the way his feet stink, and I love the way his armpits smell, and I love his little yummy,
so weird how much
body.
I love the smell of my child. It's very strange.
He always smells like strawberries to me.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah. But I think I do think that they're like somewhat pre-baked with certain ways in which they respond. And, probably some of it is modeling. Like I definitely, if a technical thing happens on my computer, I find myself like, God damn it, or whatever, shouting it out. And I'm like, oh shit, my kid's in the room. And so maybe like he's, some of it's modeled behavior, and it's like how he thinks he should sit, when he's frustrated with a toy. So like I've got to do the work, being like, okay, I can't be as reactive myself. And it's tough. But
yeah.
That's why I do podcasts, to try to help me figure it out.
Yeah, this podcast will solve it all. But I do think we need to like do check-ins every 10 years with all of the kids and parents that we're talking to, because there's no way to guarantee which style of parenting is going to work best. And there are parents who are smart, who are strategically spanking their kids, not even just out of like an anger fit, but like think this is the right thing to do to raise good people.
Sure.
And then there are people who are letting their kids do whatever they want, like on the entire other side of the spectrum. And it's like it's a really long-term experiment to see which one works best. And if you can even have a control group.
No, and you can't, because it's not like I can go, oh, well, I'll raise my little twice and determine which way is going to be better. Even if I have a second child, they're going to come pre-baked with a totally different, sort of, pre-programmed set of instructions baked into their DNA, essentially. So I don't know. I mean, like, listen, I think you just, you do the best you can. I feel like what I feel like is working is having these conversations at all. I don't imagine my parents having a podcast where they're having these like vulnerable conversations with their best friend about how they're parenting. I don't think that that's happening. I don't, or was happening. And I think that is good. I don't know that we have all the answers per se. You got to go with like instincts, and it is like kind of case by case, moment to moment. It's like when I've taught some improv, right? Like I can teach you all the rules of improv, but at the end of the day, you're on the stage and you're in the moment, And hopefully some stuff has become muscle memory because we've trained and practiced.
Yeah.
But crazy happens. I mean, I remember doing an improv show and someone climbed up on a stage door and the whole thing collapsed and fell down. And you're just like, I'm not trained for this. How do I yes and this moment? You know, like, how do I not ask questions here? It's just like, it didn't, it was like, okay, first of all, is everybody okay? Is everybody safe? And then like, how do we keep the show going at that point?
Yeah.
And it's just, the rules help, on a percentage basis. That's how I see it. Like, this is like, if I get really good at this form of parenting, I have an 80% shot of it working out in my favor, as opposed to going with some other, or not having a rule on this, or not having a practice on this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's also like, what is that when you say like 80% chance of going in your favor? It's like, what do we think about when we think about success as parents?
I guess, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question too. But, in the moment, it's like that my son will eat when it's dinner time and then we can like get to bed at a reasonable time so that he's not exhausted the next day. And we're not, it's like those small goals in those moments that is like success. Like, will we playfully and have a good time brushing our teeth versus screaming and crying for 25 extra minutes, but I don't know, maybe success is screaming and crying for 20 minutes and just being there and holding him in that space and letting him have that out, and abandoning the agenda of, I really want to hang out with my wife tonight and watch a show. I don't know.
Yeah, no, success often ends with me watching a show at the end of the day. That's a big part of it.
Oh man, if we're watching an episode of Hacks, like we won that day. Gold star. We're still on season 1. God damn it. This is how behind. And they won a whole Emmy.
Multiple. Yeah. It's I was thinking more about, like, in terms of success, when we think about Jimmy and Oliver. Oliver is such a success in my book, in that, like, they have a really good friendship. They really like each other's company. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
They are so very cute. Honest with each other. Jimmy even at one point was like, I promise you, this kid will never do drugs. And I'm like, oh, I think it would be okay if my kid did drugs. I'm like, oh, we have different meters of what's good and what's not good.
Yeah.
Like I support my kid trying mushrooms and figuring his relationship out with, like, all these other substances and whatever. No, maybe not all the other substances, but there's like different meters of success.
Making calculated risks with
in safe places with a good mindset and a healthy setting. And I really think there's something about raising a kid that feels safe coming to you that I really want to enforce. Like, or, maybe enforce isn't the right word, but back up.
Right. Yes. I want to enforce this idea that you must
feel safe coming to me.
Otherwise, that's the ... that doesn't work. But yeah, I totally agree that they just seem like they're super simpatico and love being around each other. And that's the goal. I think you're right. Like, especially if we only land with one, if you got two, then you're like, only one of them has to like me. You got the one. You're just
I only need one to change my diapers when I'm old.
Yeah. Well, I assume some sort of AI bot is going to change my diapers when I'm older.
I hope so. I hope they do more than just write songs.
Yeah. And steal creativity. Yeah. I think Oliver, to me, at least he presents himself as an absolute smashing success. Who knows what's the dark underbelly of that Pardo clan.
Yeah, I don't think there is one.
I don't think so either. We tried to get there, but it was like...
With our deep investigative work of what's your favorite color and what's your favorite memory of your dad.
Yeah.
Nothing dark came out.
Nothing. No, weirdly, nothing dark came out.
We
Yeah.
pried and pried.
Even the favorite colors were nice and light. Blue. It's nothing there. Yeah, but I think like that one answer that Oliver had about his favorite like gift or whatever it was like quality time, and I was like, get out of here, you 16-year-old like little yogi. Like, what's going on? Like, that's such an amazing answer to have, I guess, about like what you really cherish. It wasn't this like whatever amazing trip or all this stuff. It was like, oh, playing a board game with my dad. Like, wow.
Yeah, that we still laugh about.
Yeah, that we like basically it's the runner is what matters. Like, do you have good inside jokes?
Oh, that is such a sign of a good relationship.
Right?
Yeah.
It really is. It really is.
Anyway, I was hoping that you and I could come up with a few just to solidify where we stand as decade-long friends. I had to like check the calendar. I was like, decade-long friends.
It's more than decade.
We don't have enough inside jokes.
We don't?
We have a lot of old memories.
We don't have inside jokes. I'm sure we have inside jokes.
We've got big life-changing memories and big life-changing conversations, but maybe we don't have enough inside bits.
I feel like we have many bits, but I guess I can't think of any specific inside bits other than, did you manifest some cigarettes today?
I did. They're right behind me. They're framed in that box.
That's an inside bit.
The other thing I really loved that Jimmy did was talking about his failures with his kid, which my parents have never done with me. And maybe when I was older and I brought them up of like, hey, remember that time everything went bad? But it does feel like such a great way to share your lessons.
Yeah.
To be like, don't do what I did, or also I'm human and be gentle on me.
Steve, write this down as a new question that we should ask, I think, is like, what was your biggest failure? And what did you learn from it? Like, I think that's a really good, we're trying to, by the way, audience, let us know, if you have other questions that we should ask. We're trying to figure out how to evolve the format a bit.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of stuff is really nice. Cause I'm thinking about that. Like, did my parents ever shared their biggest failures? Like, I don't know. Now I just want to have a conversation with my dad. That's like, hey, what was your biggest failure? Like, and just have that start it from there.
One thing that I think was a missed opportunity in our interview is asking Jimmy, and maybe we should do this next time where we do a parent switcheroo, is asking Jimmy and Oliver how Jimmy's parents, how the way he was raised affected his parenting. Because, it can't not, it affected him. He said a little bit in how his mom always asks if everyone's okay and if they ever need anything, and how that drives his family crazy.
Right.
But right. I wonder how else, how else are we correcting or overcorrecting or following in our footsteps?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's another good question too, is like, in what way are you specifically not going to parent your child in a way that you were parented?
Yes. And in which way is it exactly like what did your parents do exactly correctly that you'd like to reinforce? What about you? What do you think your parents did really well that you'd like to keep going?
I think just community vibes. I think that like just constantly being in community was a big thing for my parents and our family. It was like just, trying to get more people at the house, always just like opening the doors a lot, and then going to people's places, or going to for us, it's not going to be temple per se, but like group community gatherings. I would love for our little crew to be hanging out more, our friend groups. And so I think that stuff is like huge. Also, they did a lot of allowing me to fail on my own, like just a lot of unsupervised free play, where they just did not get involved in the minutia of my relationships with friends and stuff like that. In some ways, I think that's good. Like, unless it becomes huge, it's like, let them sort these things out. and just be modeling how you are good friends to your community. And I think just that vibration was always great, like feeling like close to the people that my parents were close to, and that we had a really big group of people that I felt like we were close to.
My parents unconditionally loved me. Even when they were angry or spanking me or whatever, I always felt like they were doing it for my good, which is crazy because that's like a weird kind of Stockholm syndrome. But
I deserve this corporal punishment.
Truly.
Lash me harder, Father.
Oh God, that's so dark. But I did really think, my dad was gone a lot, for example, and I always was like, well, he's gone because he is trying to make money for our family, or like trying to support us, or trying, even if that, who knows how true any of what I thought as a child is. I think my parents really, really, really loved me and loved spending time with me.
What does that look like in terms of a value that you could translate? Like, I guess I'm trying to understand the sort of, like, cause don't you unconditionally love your son?
Yes,
like
I do. I think the difference is, I think I want my son to look back and feel in his body memory that parenting was really fun for me and that I had a lot of fun with him.
Yeah.
In that, I want him to remember that I really tried to enjoy it more. Yeah, even if sometimes it's a little performative, which how could it not be? It's a huge job.
Oh, I perform so much. I'm like, he better think. I mean, we're practically playing D&D in the bath. Like, what were we talking? Like, I mean,
D&D is a great precursor to parenting imagination.
You guys, I'm telling you this right now. The best bath toy is a D20, is a 20-sided die. Okay? That is unconditionally the best bath toy. My son gets so amped up when I bring out the dice because he just can't wait, because he knows he's in for silly storytelling, and that it's going to be like, have a luck-based element where he gets to roll the dice to see what happens. And he gets so into it, man. And I just weave in the, like, gotta put on soap, gotta shampoo. I just weave that into the story. I'm just like, oh, you need to put on an invisibility suit. And I'd be like, you gotta put the invisibility goo on. and then I'll write on and be like, okay, now roll your dice. Let's see how strong it is. Oh, you got a 7. Okay, it's only gonna last for 3 minutes. So what are you gonna do next? How are you gonna get past the monsters? Oh, we got to do the final rinse down. That's how you're going to get past them. And, just like kind of weave the actual bath time into the story. And he freaking loves it.
Brilliant.
Best bath toy ever.
Your nerdum has really served you in parenthood.
I just think it doesn't have, there's nothing nerdy about it, truly. I mean, there is, because it's nerdy, I guess, because it's qualified as nerdy. But at the end of the day,
I mean that in the most loving way. I mean, like, by nerdy, I mean strong community. I mean storytelling centered, and it's about building a world. And so much of playing pretend is living in an imaginary world.
100%. And I think storytelling, even in an imaginary world, helps you practice telling your story. And being able to tell your story on big scales is hugely helpful, but even on the small scales, even being able to tell the story of your day to each other and where you're at is so powerful, because it brings you together as a family. You can understand where they're coming from, where they're having hardships. Like, you guys can be more on the same page as a little commune. And so practicing, today we did a whole story. He's having trouble with a friend at school, where he's saying he doesn't want to be a friend with this kid anymore because the kid's following him around because the kid kind of idolizes him. And so then I play acted a whole thing with this creature called Sticky Hair that we made up. Okay, don't ask. And then and Dr. Ock had a falling out, and he was like, "What happened, Dr. Ock?" And I was like, "Oh, Sticky Hair kept following me around everywhere and I didn't like it." And he was like, "Oh, well, maybe you could tell him that you need some space." I was like, that's a great idea. Instead of telling him, that I don't want to be friends with him ever again, I could tell him this, like we just play acted his experience at school. I don't know if that's we'll see. That happened this morning. So I don't know if that'll have an effect, but I had a feeling that what he was doing was being able to work out some of the stuff that he's dealing with and hopefully translate it to real life for him. So I think it's important. I don't think it's frivolity. I think it's really important stuff because ultimately, what are we as humans? We are storytellers. That's how we do everything. It's how we
make meaning of anything. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we'll report back on Sticky Hair and Doc Ock.
I'll let you know how that shakes out. Yeah, it's a big, we're at a big cliffhanger. So see how that goes.
Well, I love this. Thank you for catching up with me. And guys, if you're listening, would you just do me a solid and follow and rate and comment and share this? Because we really love doing this podcast. We love spending time together. Tell us who you think we should have on as a guest or questions we should ask. We want this to be a collaborative, community-based experience.
Yeah, come on over.
Let us just be your proxies in this weird parenting comedy podcast that we're trying to make for you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We love you so much. Thank you for listening. And let's talk again soon.
Yeah, let's find an inside joke together, guys. Let's do it. We can do it. We'll insert inside joke sign off here.
Spaghetti.
Your Mom is a Podcast is hosted by Milana Weintraub and Sandeep Parikh. It is executive produced by Milana Weintraub, Sandeep Parikh, and Stephen Hine. Editing and sound design is by Sean Marr. Music by Matt Friedman. This podcast comes from Effin' Funny Productions and Story Mill Media. Be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Your Mom is a Podcast.